Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happen every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Danielle. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Send us an email at womensportsweeklypod@gmail.com. And we may feature your email on the pod.
Women's Sports Weekly is also having a bracket for March Madness. March Madness is quickly approaching. The NCAA tournament is right around the corner. So although you can't make your picks yet on the day that we release, you can still sign up. The winner of the bracket will receive a prize. So either visit the show notes in this episode, or you can click on our link tree on our Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod to sign up and register your bracket. Also, more things, more announcements. We have stickers that we give away. So if you follow us on Instagram, follow us on Spotify or Apple, subscribe to us, and rate Women's Sports Weekly 5 stars, we will send you a Women's Sports Weekly sticker. All you need to do is send us a DM of your 5-star rating. And some of you are nervous to send us a DM because you can't send a photo right away when you're DMing someone for the first time. So you could just write hi, send, and then include your picture, and we will get it and we will accept it and we will send you over that sticker. Women's Sports Weekly stickers are popping up all over the wild, so make sure you get your hands on them, and please, please, please give us a 5-star rating.
Also, in very exciting news, we are starting a run club this Thursday, March 13th at 6 p.m. at the 99ers Sports Bar here in Denver. So if you are in Denver and you listen and you have any interest in joining our run club, please do. We would love to see you there.
Maybe you listen and you don't like to run, but you have a friend or a partner that doesn't listen and does like to run, and you can send them to Run Club.
Yes, please share it with your friends. I'm really looking forward to kicking it off. Daylight savings hit this past weekend, so we gain an hour at night. So it's going to be so nice running after work with friends and then enjoying a beer or two afterwards. Spring is here.
Is there a better date night for you than Run Club and a beer?
No, there's not, and I'm happy you'll be joining me for this one.
I am going to be running, so if you're looking to get into running, or if you think, oh, I want to join this, but I don't know if I'm a good enough runner, I'm putting that in quotation marks because there's no such thing, please just come. This is not competitive. This is a fun run group, and we really want to make it that way, so please come, and I will be there with you to commiserate.
This is another plug that we are on Strava, Women's Sports Weekly. We will post the route on Strava. We'll also be posting more details on our Instagram. So if you don't already follow us on social media, please do, and we will post more details there.
Wonderful. Let's get into our weekend. We haven't talked about what we've been up to in a while, so why don't you share?
I feel like this weekend has been great, and it does incorporate into women's sports because a lot of us ladies were skiing on the slopes out in Crested Butte. We've talked about Crested Butte before. If you're in Colorado and you haven't been, or if you're just not in Colorado and looking to visit a beautiful place, we always recommend Crested Butte, Colorado.
We just love it so much. Who did we go with?
So my sisters and I and us like to try to do a ski trip every year. Last year it was just Amanda and James, my sister's boyfriend, and then this year Carly, my other sister, and her boyfriend Charlie joined as well. So it was the 6 of us and our friend Meg all got a house in Crested Butte, skied for 3 days straight. We skied, we played games, we had some beers. It was a lot of fun.
And we do need to give Carly and Charlie a moment because they have the best couple name out of the 3 couples that were on the trip. Carly Charlie is a great couple name.
It is. It is. But I always value the time I get with my sisters and love that they come out here and we get to spend a few days skiing. So it was a lot of fun. We got some fresh snow on the mountains, which is always great. And then we got 2 beautiful bluebird days where the weather was nice and it was warmer. I mean, chilling on the Adirondack chairs on the middle of the mountain. You just can't beat it.
We were all napping on the Adirondack chairs one day because, you know, après hit a little too hard
the night before. I was not napping. I was just enjoying the scenery. A few of you were snoozing.
It is also great to be skiing and then be in an Adirondack chair and then just watch people ski and watch people who can ski really well. But the more fun people are to watch the people who can't ski well, as long as they don't get hurt. We didn't see anyone get hurt, but some wipeouts are always fun to watch.
Yeah, we definitely had quite a few laughs. Also, what I love about skiing in Colorado is we are 4 hours outside of Denver, and then we drive home on Sunday and get back to Denver, and it's 70 degrees out, and we can just enjoy the warmth.
We also got to go out in Crested Butte. They were even playing women's sports in Crested Butte, which I was excited about. So we went to a brewery in Crested Butte this past weekend with a lot of TVs, and they were all playing men's sports, of course. I went up to the bartender, and to their credit, they were the most accommodating. And I was like, hey, there's a South Carolina, Oklahoma softball game on. This wasn't when South Carolina, Oklahoma basketball game was on, which also happened. Big weekend in South Carolina women's sports. And they were like, oh, we don't have SEC network, but would you want to watch something else? And I was like, well, there's an Unrivaled game on too. Can you put that on? So they put that on. So I had the Unrivaled game up, and then I had the South Carolina game on my phone. And if you've ever been to a bar, you know that there's always like some older men there drinking by themselves. And I don't know what it was that they decided that they wanted to come up to me, but he came up to me and he had a British accent, and he was like, it seems to me that you prefer women's sports over men's. Is that true? And I was like, yes, it is true.
Like, what a concept.
He was very nice about it, but I was like, the British accent threw me. And I was like, yep, it is true. And you're barking up the wrong tree, my dude. And I'm here trying to watch 2 games at the same time. So that happened this past weekend. And then we also had some competitive games being played within your family. And I really got to see some sides. And I think your family also got to see some sides of me that they probably didn't want to see playing. What were we playing? It was called Coup.
You know, my family, we're all very competitive. So I think for them to see you be very competitive, they're just like, oh, Danielle met her match. They know this about you.
We were playing Coup. I don't know if you've ever played it before. It was our first time playing it, but it's pretty much like a post-apocalyptic game. It feels a little bit too close to home at this point in time in history, but you are trying to survive and not get cooed, and it takes a lot of lying and manipulating, and we were going ham on it, and there was a lot of fighting happening between partner to partner. There were fights, there were alliances being made. I had to go up against the Brogan sisters because y'all were not helping me at all, so I had to team up with the boys in order to win a couple of times. It got cutthroat, and there was a lot of yelling.
A little competition never hurt anyone.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
We'll see if we ever play that game again.
I have a feeling we will. One of the things my sisters were really looking forward to on this trip was visiting the 99ers sports bar that we talk about all the time in Denver. So we got to go there with them, and they bought some t-shirts and got to watch some games there. So I just feel like it was nice getting to experience all of it this past weekend. Also this weekend, there were a ton of great games on. Before we get into basketball though, I know softball has been top of mind for you, especially Gamecock softball. They've been off to a great start. So let's start that with our highlight reel to talk about what's been going on with South Carolina softball.
Yes. So South Carolina played Oklahoma this past weekend. This was the SEC home opener. South Carolina was ranked 10 at the time that they were playing Oklahoma, who is ranked number 1. South Carolina, even being ranked 10, is a very big deal. They came into this series 20-0, and both Oklahoma and South Carolina were the only 2 undefeated teams in NCAA Division I coming into this past weekend.
It is crazy because I know South Carolina has been doing better over the past couple of years, but I always come into spring sports a little late in the game because I forget that spring sports gets started so early, because I'm like, wait, it's still snow on the ground and it's February and all of a sudden it's March. And you said to me the other day, you're like, South Carolina is 20-0. And I was like, wait, what? How did I miss this?
How did they play 20 games already?
Yeah.
And honestly, South Carolina going 20-0 was not on my bingo card. Would have never been my projection. They have a new head coach this year, Ashley Chastain Woodard. She is also a Gamecock alum. I happened to play with her. When I played there, we were not competitive. We got beat up in the SEC. We were the easy team for SEC teams to beat, and that's just not the case anymore. And I love that. They've gotten better and better every year, and now they have a new head coach, and they're off to this incredible start. And they did lose to Oklahoma. They lost their first game 10-9 to play with Oklahoma that close is amazing. And honestly, these games were just home run derbies, just going back and forth. The defenses were playing amazing and the hitters can just rock the ball. South Carolina drops the first game 10-9 and then they lost the second game the same score 10-9.
That is some weird shit that they just 2 games in a row, 10-9, that high scoring, watching them 9-9 and then Oklahoma just dropping a bomb in the second game to go up 10-9. That was rough. That one hurts.
The outfield was in. It was the bottom of the 7th and they just dropped it past the outfield and scored for that go-ahead win in the second game. And then in the third game, because when you play in conference play, you play 3 games in a weekend no matter what. Even if one team wins the first 2, you always play the third. And South Carolina then dropped the third game with a score of 2-1. 3 losses to Oklahoma is not great, but just strong games. So I'm just so hopeful for the South Carolina team. I love to see everyone in the SEC step up their game. Texas and Oklahoma joined the SEC, and now everyone's stepping up to play against them. It's going to be a fun season to watch.
I know I need to tune into more softball, so all our listeners out there, be on the lookout as well, because there's been some exciting games happening, and I can only imagine how exciting it will continue to be.
And now let's get into the bulk of our episode. It's March Madness time, which means Women's Sports Weekly turns into a basketball podcast for the next few weeks. It's where we spend most of our time, and I don't mind it. So let's do it.
This past Sunday was Championship Sunday. Of course, throughout the week, there's more championship games happening, but so many of the tournament championships did happen on Sunday. We're going to highlight a few of them. And so to start us off here, Duke. Who would have thought Duke women's basketball won the ACC tournament over NC State? They won 76-62, and this was their first ACC tournament championship since 2013.
Yeah, you ask who would have thought. I will tell you that Duke probably thought. I think that they are a team that thinks that they can win and go incredibly far, and they're proving that they can do that.
Absolutely. And I have to say, my focus, as people probably know who listen, is on Notre Dame and the ACC. And Notre Dame and NC State always give each other a run for their money in tight games. And Duke was just not the team I thought was going to win it. It was not an easy road to get there. Duke had to beat Notre Dame in the game prior to this to get to this championship game. Duke just showed NCAA women's basketball fans that they're here and they're not messing around and they're playing right at the right time.
Exactly. And what the heck is going on with Notre Dame, Danielle? Like, what is happening?
I know. It makes me frustrated, and they just have to start playing better, because right now they're not showing me that they're consistent. Like, they'll go a big stretch and then lose a few games in a row and then lose to a Duke. But it's not just them. It's happening across the board.
It's happening everywhere, but this is not the time to get cold.
No, and it was a close game against Duke. Notre Dame lost to them 61-56 in the semis. I, as a Notre Dame fan, hope they pick it up, but you just don't know what's going to happen this time of year.
And the seeding of March Madness is just going to be a nightmare.
I know.
Okay, on to the Big Ten Tournament Championship. Once again, we have USC versus UCLA. Have they played 45 times in the past 2 weeks? It feels that way.
It really does. I think whoever made their schedule did them dirty by putting both their conference games at the end of the season. I thought that was interesting.
And from a marketing standpoint, it's not great. To get them back to back doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't.
But they did end up in the finals of this Big Ten tournament. It doesn't mean that we didn't watch, because we still did. We've watched all 3 of these games. We were pooping on UCLA a couple weeks ago, or last week, I forget, and they proved us wrong. And they said, screw you, Women's Sports Weekly. We're going to win this game 72-67 with the program's first Big Ten tournament championship.
What do I always say? It's hard to beat a team 3 times. UCLA knew what they were doing against USC, and I think USC just ran out of steam. Like, early on, I looked at you and I was like, oh, USC is going to win this game again. They just couldn't hold on. Junior Lauren Betts, she had a big game. She led the Bruins with 17 points, 4 blocks, 4 steals, and 5 rebounds. And then you have juniors London Jones and Kiki Rice, who also added 13 points each for UCLA.
And again, like, we're going to see these matchups somewhere in the NCAA tournament bracket. And it's like, are these teams going to play 4 times against each other?
It could happen.
It's possible, and it's going to be very interesting.
Moving on to the Big 12 tournament, Baylor versus TCU. And TCU won this game 64-59.
TCU was in last place in this conference 2 years ago, and now they are Big 12 tournament champions this year. You have to say that it has to be tied to Haley Van Lith, HVL. She had 20 points. She only scored 4 in the first half and then scored 16 in the second half. And she was 10 for 10 on free throws in this game.
It's really nice to see her play well this year because she was great at Louisville. And then she transferred to LSU, and last year we just all season were like, what is going on with Haley Van Lith? LSU just wasn't the right fit for her. And she comes to TCU and she has shown that she's back to herself. And even in the post-game interview, she just seemed happy, obviously, after just winning. But I could just see she has her personality back and just looks so much better out there on the floor.
Yeah. I will say, though, I don't really care for TCU. Don't need to see them go too far. Sorry, HVL. Love to watch it play. Don't care about TCU.
Hot take.
Sorry. We've never claimed to be unbiased. So if this is your first time listening, welcome. We are a very biased podcast.
And with that, we will talk about our game of the week. Who else but South Carolina Gamecocks? And they took care of business on Sunday, beating the Texas Longhorns 64-45.
This was in the SEC tournament. South Carolina was ranked number 1 and Texas was ranked number 2. And that came down to an actual coin flip.
Which is pretty hilarious because just thinking something could come down to a coin flip. But yes, that just goes to show how close the competition was here.
In the overall AP ranking, South Carolina was ranked number 5 and Texas was ranked number 1. So very interesting.
At the time that they played.
Yes. They split games this season. South Carolina beat Texas, then Texas beat South Carolina, and then they played again, third time.
I'm pretty convinced the number 1 spot is cursed this year. Aside from South Carolina being there at the start of the season for a few weeks, and then they lost to UCLA, and UCLA was in that number 1 spot for quite a while. But since UCLA left the number 1 spot, I don't think anyone's been safe for more than a week. It's like severely cursed right now.
Yeah, and I remember talking about it last year, and South Carolina just held down the number 1 spot once they got there. But the number 2 spot was pretty cursed. Like anyone who got up into number 2 then lost the following week. So yeah, parity is here. I, again, don't know how they're going to do the rankings because it is such a jumbled web. How do you decide who goes where?
I really don't know because watching this game, to me, I'm watching South Carolina play and I'm like, this is the South Carolina team I've been waiting to see. This is the South Carolina team that looks like they deserve the number 1 spot. And they just really took care of business. This game was also played in Greenville, South Carolina, which it's about an hour and a half drive from Columbia to Greenville. And South Carolina fans showed up. They were loud. The atmosphere was great. I think for Texas, it felt like a road game for them, not a neutral site.
3,000%. It seemed unfair that South Carolina got to play in Greenville. They have players from that area. So imagine all of those players, family and friends are coming.
Yeah. And I think Vic Schaefer was quoted saying, maybe if this game were in San Antonio, they would have been yelling for us. But I can tell you it was not the case for them on Sunday. For South Carolina, Chloe Kitts has had an incredible tournament. We have talked about her all season. I feel like she's been struggling this year and she's been in and out of the starting lineup, but the past couple games she has really played well and she was named tournament MVP.
I'm really happy to see her doing well at this time of the year. And it's not that she was playing poorly at any part of the season. It was just like everyone in South Carolina was finding their groove at a different time. And I'm hoping that now things are just starting to gel at the right time.
Yeah, and to me, it was more of a confidence thing because we watch a lot of South Carolina games. This year, I just feel like her confidence has been down a little up until recently. So agree that it's been nice to see her play well.
Chloe Kitts averaged 16.7 points, 7.7 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block in the 3 games of the SEC tournament and shot 74.2% from the field.
And in the championship game, she added 15 points and 9 rebounds, leading the way for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, and their defense was so good in this game, and I think that's like such a South Carolina trait, and I'm like, lean into this more. Just play such solid D that creates these offensive opportunities because South Carolina is fast and they can get down the court quickly. So yeah, it was just really refreshing to see.
They held sophomore Madison Booker, who we've talked about a ton, could be player of the year, definitely in contention. They held her to 10 points, and they forced the Longhorns to 18 turnovers in the game overall. 11 of those turnovers were in the first half.
And I'm just crossing all my fingers and toes, hoping that they make it to the Final Four.
A few key things to think about is in this championship game, they never trailed Texas. And in the second quarter, they went on a 19-2 run. I'm sure Dawn Staley is feeling a lot better this past Sunday, beating Texas from when they lost back on Super Bowl Sunday. So it's a good time to be a Gamecock.
Yeah, Mylasia Fulwiley said after their loss to UConn, I wouldn't want anyone to have to play us after that because it just changed everything in the locker room for them. It changed everything in the way that they think, and they're cruising now. As a Gamecock fan, that's exactly what I want to hear.
For sure. All right, with that, let's talk about what we're looking ahead to this week.
Let's stay on the March Madness track. What are you looking forward to?
Selection Sunday is this coming Sunday on March 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. What does this mean? It means the bracket is going to be live and we're going to be able to make our picks for the tournament. And it's just a week before, well, less than a week before the NCAA tournament actually begins.
And this is your PSA now to put in a day or two off from work to watch the first round. I'm not kidding. Put in your PTO now, take the Friday off of those first round of games, and have yourself a time. You deserve to watch women's sports all day. So Selection Sunday is your reminder to get that PTO in to your boss.
What are you looking forward to this week?
We need to talk about Unrivaled Playoffs. It's interesting that they're also creating their own March Madness here. The playoffs begin this week. Sunday, March 16th will be the semifinals beginning at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And Monday, March 17th, will be the championship game at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. All games will be on TNT and True TV. The rankings for playoffs are the Lunar Owls in the number 1 spot, Rose in number 2, Laces in number 3, and the Vinyl Clinch the number 4 spot. So if you're looking for some March Madness before your March Madness begins, tune in to these games. Also, the NWSL starts this week. The National Women's Soccer League here in the U.S. starts this week, Friday, March 14th. The Orlando Pride take on the Chicago Stars at 8 p.m. on Prime Video. They are no longer the Chicago Red Stars. They dropped the red, and they are now just the Chicago Stars. And the Houston Dash play the Washington Spirit at 8 p.m. Eastern Time also on NWSL Plus. As a reminder, NWSL Plus is free to download and free to watch, so go ahead and do that. So much happening in the women's sports world.
So much. And oh my gosh, the NWSL starting just made me really excited because a year from now, we're going to be getting ready to go to the Denver NWSL games.
That's a great point. I'll be painting my skin green.
I cannot wait. No, I already said I was doing that. Cynthia Erivo with Wicked, I said I was claiming that.
Oh, but we can't both paint our bodies green?
Well, I guess we can.
Yeah, because then when we kiss, the other person doesn't have to get green on them.
Good point.
That is it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports. Rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. If you give us a 5-star rating and send us a DM, you get a sticker. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.